welcome back to Ohio.
Oh, I love being here with all you Buckeyes. This is just a lot of fun.
So I understand you made a little visit to the construction site out there. Tell us what you saw and where do we stand in the progress?
Well, we've made a lot of progress. And if you remember when we had the groundbreaking, we had earth movers just driving around. They weren't moving any earth yet, but we had them driving around to make it look good. But man, the hole was dug, concrete is being poured. We've committed now over $4 billion to the project. It's committed at this point. We have over $1 billion in the ground. Right at this point, obviously our friends from Bechtel are working like crazy, and as of today, we're about 1,700 construction workers at the site as of this point, and that will ramp up as we go through the year if we get enough workers to make it happen. One of our mutual challenges, but this is a corn and soybean field that's just emerging as what will be one of the largest and the leadership semiconductor manufacturing site in the world, and it really is marvelous seeing new kind of growth happening in that field. Well,
it's fantastic, and I know you mentioned workforce, which I think you mentioned to the governor and me every time you talk to us, so that would not be surprising. So tell us, as Bechtel begins this build-out for you and you're looking at this, tell us about the workforce needs, or the other side of that coin, the opportunities for Ohioans. What can they do? What do you need?
Yeah, and when you think about a project like this, obviously people often think about the PhDs we need and the leadership, and then the technicians that are going to be working in the fab and keeping all the equipment running. But right now, what we need is to build the site. And that's construction, that's rebar, that's electricians, that's plumbers, that's all of the skilled labor projects. So that's the phase of the project that we're in. And you might have heard that since we announced our project, there's just like a building boom going on here. And there's a lot of excitement for all sorts of projects going on. And there's, in the nation, there's a shortage of these skilled workers. And it's probably most acute right here. Anywhere else in the nation. Is that good news for Ohio? Yeah, these are good problems to have, but I need them fixed if we're going to keep the project on schedule.
Yeah, and we've had a good talk about that, but it's everything from plumbers and pipe fitters to electricians. It's all of those things, and we're drawing from a wide pool, and we got to keep that going.
And as I think about it, I want people who are coming to the site and the project here, I expect them to finish their careers building at that site, because we're just going to, when we finish the first 2 modules, hey, we want to start the 3rd, and then the 4th, and then the 5th. I mean, we just want to continue to build out that location over time. And
so there's some job security out there.
Absolutely,
let's go do it, right?
Absolutely. Ohio, man, it's going to be a great place to plant really deep roots here.
So let me transition to a question that I've wanted to ask you for a while, and I know you're going to do some media interviews tomorrow, and I'm probably not going to be as tough as they are on this, but it is. I mean, Intel created Silicon Valley. They, the chips, semiconductors are an Intel, invention in a sense. You created the industry in the country and for the world, but then over time, we lost our supremacy. Intel is no longer the largest chip manufacturer in the world. And it's rare that a company was on top and then moves from that pedestal and then recovers to that. Although there was a little company named after a fruit, Apple, that managed to do that, right? Yeah. But is it going to be an Apple story or a General Electric story? And tell us why you believe that your strategy is going to make it, the Intel story of leadership.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously this is my job. That's why I came back to the company, was to write that turnaround story, that transformation. Curiously, I was out of Intel for 11 years. Steve Jobs was out of Apple for almost exactly the same days. Right, and when I found that out, I was sort of like, wow, what a curious coincidence, right? And so coming back, it's very much to rebuild the company for the founders. The Gordon Moore, Bob Noyce, Andy Grove, the people that began this industry and created it. But it's also for the industry. Intel, hey, we're the power that goes, and hey, we can design chips, but if we don't manufacture any, that is not a sustainable position. If all of the R&D and manufacturing is global, we need that here. And of course, for the Western world and the nation, right? And what portion of your life is not becoming more digital? Everything. Your healthcare, your financials, your social network, right? And everything digital runs on chips. It's becoming more critical. And, as I like to say, where the oil reserves have defined geopolitics for the last 5 decades. Where the technology supply chains, where the chips are built, is more important for the next 5 decades. Build them where we want them. And that's the journey that we've launched on. I said it was 5 years to rebuild the company, at least 5 years, and we're in year 3. We laid out a very audacious plan. We called it 5 nodes in 4 years. Usually a node takes 2 years, and we said we're going to get 5 done in 4 years. That's like more than double time. And we see the finish line. Right? We're producing some of the early chips on that 5th node to get us back to leadership as well. And our Arizona facility will be the first, what we call 18A facility as it comes live. The next major node after that, 14A, the one that comes after that, below 2 nanometers. And, that's just like mind-boggling that we can put, 100 billion transistors on a chip, right? If you think about it, it's just incredible. We're going to be building that next generation of chip right here in Ohio. As we get back to leadership, we become a foundry for the world, and we bring back an industry that we birthed here in America.
Yeah, it is. If you study all of history, you have. If you're not dominant from a technological point of view, you're not dominant from a military and economic point of view. So it's essential, not just for Intel, but for our nation.
That's what I believe, and I don't believe it was a coincidence that of the major bills of this administration, this was the one at the front of the line. I don't think it was a coincidence that I was invited to stand up at the State of the Union and received, there's only been 3 topics that have received the joint standing ovation of House, Congress, Democrats, Republicans in the last 5 years of the State of the Union. One of them was chips. I mean, when we were
it was
here,
one of the few bipartisan accomplishments that has happened.
When we were here launching the Silicon Heartland, it just touched a level of the nation. Hey, all this technology stuff, it happened on the coast. What about the Heartland? And I think all of that is just realizing this is of consequential importance, significance to the nation, to our economy, to our national security. So we are on what I'll say is a very noble journey, not just for the company, not just for Silicon Heartland, but for the nation.
Well, along those lines, it's not just Intel, but it's your whole supply chain that needs to have a domestic source or at least a source where you can depend on that. So let's talk about the supply chain for a bit, both your perspectives on the global supply chain and then more specifically, if we're going to build the industry or rebuild the industry to dominance in America again, what does that look like? What do we need to do?
Yeah, and when we think about the CHIPS Act, it was really about the fabs, right? And that's sort of the heart. And that's sort of, you'll just call that like the big middle, right? If we get the fabs moved, it's sort of a gravitational pull for everything else. But then we need the chemicals. Right? And if the chemicals are being imported from Asia, right, as they come here, okay, we still got issues in the supply chain. If the equipment manufacturers, if they've put up all of their operations in okay, we got to bring those as well. And then it's the output of the fabs as well. So as the president said at our CHIPS Act grant, he said supply chains need to not just end in the U.S., but begin and end in the U.S. So it really is looking across that full corpus. And as I think about the sustainable policy that needs to follow on the CHIPS Act, it's very much the supply chain. It's very much the made in America preferences. It's the long-term R&D aspects. It's the sustainability. When you think about it, we never voted to get rid of the semiconductor industry. But Asia voted their industrial policy for over 3 decades to get it. We need sustainable tax policy, capital investment policies. All of those need to not just be this one-time shot in the arm with the CHIPS Act, but sustainable industrial policy that we rebuild the entirety of the supply chain and we create a positive economic cycle to keep a healthy and expanding industry in this domain. It wasn't just fixing it once, it's now sustainable policy that has it growing, thriving, and expanding here in the U.S.
So right now that supply chain's global. We're trying to domesticate it. Have they bought in? Have the suppliers bought into the idea that America wants them all here, and are they looking to do that?
Given the announcements that have been come out on the CHIPS Act, there's a lot of interest, enthusiasm, but many of those are still, peering over there. Hey, maybe we'll go build next to the Ohio site, but everybody's sort of waiting to see these projects come to life. So I'd say I am very encouraged. We meet with them all the time and have it. There's, some have started to make moves in that direction, but there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I also think that, with this, there's going to be opportunities for friendshoring as well, right? And I was just in Costa Rica. Hey, they're ready to come alongside of us as well. So I think it's the supply chain. I think it's the customer preference, and I think it's the friendshoring partners as well. All of those need to come together for a sustainable ecosystem.
Yeah, but there's still work to be done there.
Oh my!
And we can hopefully we can. I know that I think you have 359 suppliers already in Ohio or something along those lines, and that number keeps growing. So we hope to be a bigger part of that.
Yeah, that's what it is. The gravitational pull. This is just awesome for the entire region.
Yep. So let's talk AI, because isn't everybody talking about AI
Indeed.
right now? And we have seen, I think November 30th of 2022 is when everybody sort of learned about this Chat GPT thing, and now there's been 2 more iterations of that, and much of the private investment we're seeing, or nation-state investment, is in AI right now. What does that mean for Intel and the future of the chips industry?
And the analogy I'd suggest that all of you would have is the internet. Okay, how many of you are on the internet on a daily basis, an hourly basis, a minute basis? Why aren't you paying attention to Mr. Husted and I, right? Put your phones down and listen to us, right? It is that intense that it's become part of everything we do, right? And AI will be the same way, right? In that sense, it's going to be as transformative as the internet was, as connectivity was. It will just change everything. Let's just take one brief example. A personal computer, right? That personal laptop that you carry around and use, it's defined by this recent invention called the QWERTY keyboard that was invented in 1884. You have been adapting to this weird interface called a QWERTY keyboard, for the entirety of your computing experience. With AI, the computer's going to adapt to you. You're going to talk to it in your language, not in its language. It's going to adapt, and it's going to know. It's going to, when we're going to do this meeting next time, John, your computer's going to tell you, this is the last time you saw Pat, this is what you talked about, these are the reminders for his kids, his grandkids, and everything else. You're going to look so frickin' smart next time we talk. It's just, and it's going to be all these AI assistants.
Yes.
That are participating, bots. It's going to transform every aspect of business as you go forward. It's going to be, right, what time do you wake up in the morning, John?
It depends what I have to do that day, but usually around 6.
6 o'clock. Tomorrow morning, your personal device wakes you up at 5 a.m. It says, last night you had a heart irregularity. This is the 3rd one that you've had in the last month. So
because I'm trying to find workforce for Intel.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, he is stressed. Yeah. He's working hard. Right, so I got you up early. I've uploaded all of your biomedical information to the cloud. I've run it against everybody matching your DNA group. I've loaded, the directions to the doctor's appointment. It's on the other side of town into your self-driving car. I've moved your coffee order to a Starbucks on the way. And since you are going to the heart doctor, I made it decaf.
There you go.
All of that's going to happen in the next decade, right? I mean, all of these things are going to come forward. It really is this powerful, transformative, just like the internet was. And it's going to need a whole lot of chips.
Well, tell us about those. Like, what's the difference in the types of chips and how does that process work?
Yeah, and in many regards, it's going to be more powerful. We had gotten into a period over the last, 5-8 years where chips were sort of getting sort of boring. We made them a little faster, a little bit bigger, and so on. AI is anything but boring. And we're seeing this extraordinary demand in computing requirements because all of a sudden these facial and natural language models and chat GPTs and inferencing clouds, permeating. It's become, just this driver of energy. And I want our Columbus site here, Ohio 1, to be the AI systems fab for the nation. And I think this is going to be a huge driver of the demand and capacity that we have right here because it's going to need the most advanced chips in the world. And if you think about it, imagine if you were using a chip 10 years ago to drive your AI versus the most modern chip in the world driving AI. The experiences that you're going to be able to deliver are 100 times better. And if you compare this rapid advancement just going from ChatGPT 2 to ChatGPT 4 now, the accuracy, there is no end at this phase of the value of intelligence that's going to emerge from these AI systems. And it's going to be a stunning period, and I think we're in a super cycle of technology innovation, largely driven by AI and chips for the next 20 years.
Yeah, there are a lot of aspects to that. They talk about AI chips or AI queries taking 7 times as much energy, and that I've heard you talk about how the chips are going to need to become more energy efficient, but where's demand going to be for those chips? What do you expect? How do we plan for it?
Yeah, and some of this is if anybody tells you they know the answer to that question, don't believe them. Right?
Well, I'm talking to you. I figure you would know the answer to this question.
Because the variability on the forecast now, and I just reviewed this last week with my board of directors, and here's our forecast, here's our upside forecast, and here's the analyst forecast, and here's the optimistic analyst forecast. Huge ranges of variabilities associated with it. Some have suggested that the energy requirements for these AI systems will go from about 4 to 5% of the nation's energy to 30% of the nation's energy by 2030. Just a 6. Okay, I don't believe that's going to happen, but I do believe it could double, maybe even triple over the rest of the decade because there's just so much opportunity for these AI systems. So it's going to drive the most leading edge chips, just like we're going to make here. It's going to drive the demand overall across every aspect, from the biggest clouds, to enterprise environments, to personal computers, to your personal devices. My hearing aids have a neural network in it. Right? Well, that's pretty cool, right? It's just going to permeate every aspect, and they're going to become AI enhanced and drive a lot more demand for chips and silicon, just like we're going to build right here at Ohio 1.
Well, that you're leading me to my final question here before we run out. But so we care about AI, we care about chips around the world, we care about the national security, but this audience cares about Ohio the most, right? And so tell us, what we can expect as we look forward to the foundries that you're building here, and what do you need for us to do to make sure that we're successful together?
Yeah, and I'll just say again, as I've said before, we feel like we're home when we're in Ohio, right? We feel like we have a values match. We feel that we share goals of what we're trying to accomplish. And when we announced the Silicon Heartland, it was just a resonance, right? Where you're just like, okay, this is right and this is good. Obviously, this is a big project. And we need roads, we need power. We were talking about that. Hey, don't worry about those data centers. Just give me all the power, right? They need it. They need a dog and a security guy, right? I'm building factories and jobs and so on.
We got the message. Yeah, believe me, we got the message.
Just reminding you, right? Yeah. In front of a
in front of all of our friends here.
As well. But it's a magnet for so many other industries and opportunities, to rise up around it. And that's really what this project is doing, right? It's just going to be this magnet of different requirements that emerge from the supply chain, like we've talked about, the equipment and suppliers. And the more of those that we have, hey, we're going to need more teachers. We're going to need more police officers. We're going to need all of those aspects because we're going to take this field and we're creating the most advanced AI-driven technology community on the planet, and it's a pleasure that I get to do that with you all.
Well, it's great to have you with us today. You should know that we're building an AI toolkit for all of our K through 12 systems so that they can be prepared for this too. And we're working with our career centers to build the construction industry. And everybody in this room is rooting for you and for Intel. And we're excited to be your partners. And thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.